Hello and welcome. My name is Debbie Morgan and I'm Director for Primary at the NCETM. We're really pleased to have you here. This is the third year of Mastering Number at Key Stage 2 and we've had really positive feedback from schools in terms of the positive impact it's had. And hopefully you've heard some of that and that's why you're here and signed up to be part of the programme this year. So a huge welcome. We're really pleased to see you and appreciate your commitment by being here. So why are you here? I expect many of you want to improve your multiplication check, but the programme will do much more than that. It will also develop and deepen children's understanding of multiplicative relationships. And that's so important for children's success in mathematics. It's probably one of the hardest things at Key Stage 2, and certainly one that will impact on Key Stage 3 as well. So what are the aims of the programme? What are we seeking to do? I would say it's twofold, really. One is about your teachers. We want to develop your teacher subject knowledge, which will in turn improve the quality of teaching. And that's the single most important thing that will raise standards in your school. And we also want to develop pupils' fluency and flexibility in handling multiplicative relationships. And that's so key. Very often children can pick up additive relationships, addition and subtraction. They seem to pick up relatively easily. But multiplicative relationships remain a harder barrier for them. So we're aiming to really secure that multiplicative reasoning, which will enable them to solve problems. So we are very much building on the successes of Mastering Number in Reception and Key Stage 1. And I expect many of you will have engaged in that programme and hopefully you're continuing to use it in your school. But as I mentioned just now, it's about developing your teacher subject knowledge. It's about opportunities to strengthen professional development through working collaboratively with other teachers, both in your school and outside of your school. And children will be using the same resources. And so there's that equity element to it as children move through the programme together. And the number of teachers who said, even my SEND children can do it. Hey, that's great. That's the strength of the materials. They're providing access for all pupils. It will develop that factual fact fluency, but it will also develop that conceptual understanding alongside that. And the research literature very much emphasizes that these two elements of mathematics, one supports the other. And so it's important that the two are done together. The facts will end up being stored in the long-term memory, but they'll be stored with understanding, which means that they can be taken and used within problem-solving contexts. And it'll provide regular practice in order to maintain that fluency. And we have particular ways of practicing, which I'll mention again in a minute, but also we'll really get into deeply when you join the programme. So how will you as a school be supported? We very much want to support you. It's not an easy task that you're undertaking, and we want you to be successful. So you'll be part of a work group. So you'll have central sessions, but also very importantly, you work at a local level through your Maths Hub. And you'll also have a base camp in order to collaborate. And you might well be have some questions. Well, the base camp is the place to find out your answers to the questions. So, for example, some of the questions we sometimes have is how can I open a PowerPoint when my school uses Google? Well, we'll give you solutions to those very technical things. You might have subject knowledge queries. I don't quite get the relationship between partitive and quotative division. And we'll support you in understanding that because that will deepen your understanding and it will also impact on pupils' understanding. You might not be able to access the materials. again will provide support through the Basecamp. And you might be wondering what this Going for Gold thing is. Well, again, we'll provide you support as we go through. So as we are now in our third year, we've had lots of feedback from schools. So therefore you can be assured that you are joining something of quality with the potential to have impact. Here's just a little bit of it. Time to talk, breathe and reflect with others. So that collaborative working has been really valued. A refresh of thinking about multiplication other than just the remembering of facts, which don't work. Enjoying talking to teachers from other schools, not just in your own school, about what they are doing as maths leads. Again, I can't emphasize that collaboration is really important. And just thinking about maths is great. I recall a teacher saying to me that she thought she knew everything there was to know about maths. She thought she made lots of connections, but she discovered more, and that was really exciting. Great program, say teachers. Children are able to talk, so not only teachers talking, but children talking, and they're talking confidently. Language development is really crucial within the context of mastery, and equally so within the Mastery Number at Key Stage 2 program. So obviously our long-term memory plays a key role in that development of automaticity in number facts. But those rules alone, those number facts alone, cannot support us unless they are accompanied by understanding. And in the long term, our memory is capable of storing thousands of facts. But how do we get them in there in the first place? The program is very much read up on the research on how we achieve that and apply it to the program so that the strategies we use are effective in supporting children retain facts in their long-term memory alongside that understanding in order to be able to solve problems. So have a think about your Year 4 pupils. How well were they able to access the MTC? Are they still secure with these facts at the beginning of Year 5? And how about your current Year 4s? Which facts do they know already, and how many do they still need to learn? That retention of facts is really, really key. And again, we've read up on the research literature and used strategies to support that retention. Let's just have a go at some multiplication facts and just reflect on them. So here's one. 6 times 7. Here's your next one. 7 eighths. Here's your next one. 11 twelves. How did you feel about that? You know, for some of you, you've got them to automaticity and they just come out and it's just easy. There's no stress, no strain. They're just there. For others, particularly children in your class, they might go into panic mode and think, oh, I don't know these and I can't even think now because I'm in panic mode and my anxiety has kicked in. And so we want all children to be confident, to be able to automatically recall those facts in order that they can focus on concepts. That's really important. So let's just think about how we'll be learning those important multiplication facts. The research literature says that children go through 3 stages: procedural knowledge and figuring facts out. So what are 3 5s? I've got 5 plus a 5 and another 5. I've got 15 in total. And then once they start to build facts that they know, they then can learn strategies and look at the relationships between facts. So for example, and if you just watch my hands, I'll try and center them so you can just about see them. If I know that 10 5s are 50, then I know that 9 5s is 5 less, it's 45. So seeing those relationships between facts helps children store them with sense in their long-term memory. And they'll eventually develop that automaticity where there's very little load on their memory. They're just able to retrieve them and then use them in more complex settings such as problem solving. So let's just think about making connections, an element that's really strong in the program. The connection between multiplication and division, for example, is made really explicit, and children explore that together and develop that understanding of that relationship. So if you know that 7 eighths are 56, and in the program we'll say 7, 8, 56, those three numbers are linked together, two factors and one product, then you might also, if I ask you what else do you know, you might tell me that you know that 56 divided by 8 is equal to 7 because 7 eighths are 56. How many eights are there in 56? There are 7 because 7 eighths 56. But I wonder if you thought about this when children come to look at fractions. So 56 eighths is equal to 7. Quite simply because 7 eighths are 56 and 56 sevenths are equal to 8 because 7 eighths are 56 and 8/56 simplifying fractions is equal to 1/7 because 7 eighths are 56 and 7 over 56 is equal to 1/8 because 7 eighths are 56. It's all because of that one fact. And we'll be explicitly exploring these relationships and these connections within the program. So on to using the materials. The materials will be available on Access, and a lead teacher from each year group will be responsible for downloading them and sharing them with colleagues. Also, please remember to share them on your school system so that you've got them available for next year and subsequent years. Think about the professional development sessions, those central sessions, who will attend them. Ideally, it has to be the lead teacher, but it can also be other teachers in your school alongside. Just ensure that you use the one computer if more than one teacher is attending, as it will exceed our Zoom license otherwise. So think about what systems you have in place if teachers are sharing materials and sharing their learning with colleagues. When will they do that? When will there be the opportunity? It's a really valuable opportunity to think about how you can make space for that. The prepared materials, there will be teacher guides and PowerPoint slides. So think about how you're going to use those, and I'll talk a little bit about those on the following slides. As I've mentioned, there will be teacher guides. The first paragraph of that teacher guide is about teacher subject knowledge. Opportunities to discuss subject knowledge with another teacher will be really valuable. There will also be session notes to support the teaching, and 3 characters will be used called Cal, Mo, and Finn, who will ask the children questions, who will have discussion, who will be used to stimulate the interaction in the classroom. So here's an example of a teacher guide with that subject knowledge paragraph at the beginning. As I've said, opportunities to discuss that subject knowledge with another colleague will really help teachers to embed it into their teaching. There's always a section on making connections to previous learning, and we always provide suggestions for those children who are maybe struggling a little bit, not quite getting it, to give them further practice. And there are also detailed session notes with questions and what to look out for when teaching. The PowerPoint slides will be used in the session. It's important that you take intellectual ownership of these, however. You need to understand their purpose and the key points that need drawing out so that you can make them interactive when working with your pupils. The sessions will last approximately 50 minutes and there are some optional tasks. These can be printed out, but this is not essential. Other resources are things you will have anyways in your classroom, such as mini whiteboards, counters or cubes. And there will also be practice cards needed, which can be printed out on either card or paper. Okay, I'm going to introduce you to something that has proved to be almost magical. When we were designing the program, we knew that unitizing was really important. It's really key to multiplication. Things are no longer in ones, but they're in units. In this case, units of 50. And so it's 150. They're one unit and the units are 50. And we've got 3 of those units, as you can see here. And we came up with the stamping gesture. I'm just going to let you watch the stamping gesture. The image, by the way, is courtesy of Microsoft PowerPoint stock images, but the actual idea of the unitizing and having a stamping gesture is our own. So here we go. Just have a little look at this. So 1 unit of 50, 2 units of 50, 3 units of 50. Okay, so that unitizing of those, so we've got 3 50s, and that factor 3 is the number of units, and the 50 is the size of the units. So the size of the units is 50, and we have 3 of them. That's really powerful and really helps children understand multiplication. And the STEM sentence, which you might be familiar with using STEM sentences underneath, is there are 3 50s. There is 50 3 times. And the reason we say it both ways is that we're building that fluency and that flexibility that 3 times 50 can represent 3 50s. And it can also represent, we can also write it the other way and put 50 times 3, and it represents 53 times. So the language is really crucial, that children have that flexibility of being able to read both ways. There are videos for you to access. Let's look at some children in this video, and here's some reflections from a school leader.
1 times 50 on this side because there's one group of 50, and I wrote 50 times 1 on this side because there's 50 one time, or 50 once. And on this side I wrote 2 times 50 because there's 2 groups of 50.
So this year, Mastering Number at Key Stage 2, the focus has really been on engaging all children with being able to not just learn their multiplication table facts, so that's a large part of it, but also really understanding structures of multiplication and setting those foundations for learning that we know is going to be taking place beyond Year 4 and into Year 5, 6 and beyond, and making sure that the children are making connections so that those real foundational understandings about structure are really secure for all.
Today we've been thinking about not just one unit that represents many, we've been thinking about more than one unit.
So we've started with unitising, so it's a really core feature of multiplication where you're thinking about many as one unit.
Are we ready? 60, 60, 60. Our factor 3 representing those 3 units of 60.
Sometimes when we're going into writing multiplication expressions or then going on to equations, the children can write these expressions and equations and not really understand what it is that's going on. So the focus has really been on helping children to understand exactly what it means by a unit and thinking about drawing on their understanding of their Year 2 experience when they've thought about money.
Okay, get your stamper ready. What's going to be on our stamper this time?
50.
And how many times do we need to stamp?
Twice.
Why do we need to stamp twice? Shua, please.
We need to stamp twice because there are 2 50p.
We need to stamp twice because there are 2 units of 50. There are 2 50s. Ready? Here we go. 50, 50.
So we're just going to look at this 2023 SATS question. 754 times 6 plus 754 times 3 is equal to 754 times something. And so if we go back to those unitizing counters that I talked about earlier, if we think about units of 754, and how many have we got on this first expression? Well, we've got 6 of them. And how many on this second expression? Well, we've got 3 of them. So they're all units of 754, and in total we have 9 of them. So the answer, the number missing from the box, is 9. Once you understand unitizing, this problem becomes such an easy problem. I'm wondering if you reflect on how your Year 6 pupils got on with this question. This brings me on to the research by Tall and Gray. They identified 2 types of learners: those who find learning mathematics relatively easy, are able to work out efficient strategies and be successful, and those who find it a real slog, find it really hard. And they also identified that those who are finding it really hard are more likely to be doing a different type of maths, and indeed a harder type of maths. Let's just have a look and see what they might do in that previous question of 754 that we just explored. So there's the question: 754 times 6 plus 754 times 3 equals 754 times something. Let's see what a child who's finding maths hard might do. Oh, and they still didn't get there. So that's really interesting. Some children will just view that question as an instruction to calculate. They'll just get on with the procedure and try to solve it in that way, whereas others are thinking about unitizing and are doing it relatively easily, as we said. And the program is about all children being explicitly taught the easier strategies and that deeper understanding of exposing those mathematical structures so they're able to be successful. So we're leveling the playing field for all pupils by being explicit in our teaching. So I'm sure you've already picked up that we'll be using representations. You've already seen the unitized counters and the stamping that goes on. And we really want children to really gain a real sense and a depth of knowledge and a feel for the mathematics. And a verbalization, particularly through those STEM sentences, which are then stored in the long-term memory along with understanding, and children are able to use them to solve problems and to generalize about relationships. So this is a DFE funded program, and obviously they're going to be looking for evidence of impact. So we will ask you to complete a few simple tasks and give us feedback and data so that we can then present that to the DFE. More details will be given later, so there's no need to worry about it now. But what I would ask you to do is not to start the program yet, but to wait till your first session in September, where you'll have more detail, and to do the assessment before you start the program. So as already mentioned, there are materials for Year 4 and also materials for Year 5. And I've got a question here, which materials to use. You might think, well, it's relatively straightforward. We use Year 4 and Year 4 and Year 5 and Year 5. What schools have found is that sometimes it's beneficial to also use the Year 4 in Year 5, and I'll explain how you might do that. So here's a flowchart to support your thinking process in making decisions about which materials to use, particularly in Year 5. I will say in Year 4, all pupils use Year 4 materials. But in Year 5, you might think my pupils have automatic retrieval of multiplication facts. If the answer to that is yes, or at least most of my class, the majority, then use the Year 5 materials. You might think yes and no, but only for some of my class. Then you might want to use the transition weeks for the beginning of Year 5, and we put them together for you. Or you might think, no, I've come back in September and they've forgotten most of the facts, even the ones they got right in the multiplication check. Then use the Year 4 materials. So you can discuss this with your work group lead about which materials you should use. So as I've said previously, the programme has huge potential to make a significant impact on the outcomes for your pupils. However, that can only be the case if there's fidelity to the programme. So it does need a significant amount of commitment on your part, a commitment to engaging with fidelity with the materials, with having time to work on them, with having time for colleagues to discuss and learn from each other. So the programme will very much support the implementation process. So if you want it to have these astounding results that you can see in the boxes below, then actually there needs to be fidelity to the programme and you need to give it the commitment that's needed. That's absolutely crucial if you're going to reap the rewards that these schools have done so below. So we will support you with the implementation process, and there will be separate head teacher and subject leader sessions in particular, and we'll provide materials for you to think about what's necessary in setting up systems and practices in school in order to make the programme a success and to maximise. So what are the next steps for you? Look out for contact from your Maths Hub. That's really, really important. They will share dates and invites for central sessions with you, so the invites will come from them, and also for those important head teacher and subject leader sessions later this month. There will be dates for local sessions also, as well as the central sessions, and also they'll give you support on how to access the materials in Access. So thank you for being here and your commitment to the programme. We're very excited to have you on board and to see the impact the programme will have on your pupils. Because we're looking at providing access and success for all of our pupils is absolutely crucial for their success in mathematics and their progress. And we can do it. Together we can do it. So we very much look forward to hearing how you get on as a school. And so thank you. Thank you for being here and your commitment to the programme. Goodbye.